Good morning everybody, unless of course you're watching this video in the evening, in that case good evening, and you are watching Time Travel TV, and today we're going to be talking about how accurate the chariot race from Ben-Hur is. We're talking about the 1959 version of Ben-Hur starring Charlton Heston. We will be touching on the other two versions, but that will be later on in the video and not in as great a detail. Also, I would like to say I do like this film, so any historical inaccuracies I point out doesn't necessarily make it a bad film, just a less historically accurate film, which for many people is a bad film, and quite a few inaccurate films are bad. Yes, I am talking about you, Braveheart. Anyway, so here we go. First clip, please. So, first of all, this part when they are parading around the circus. That's what Romans would have called their chariot racing arenas, the circus. So, for a start, they wouldn't have paraded around the circus like that. They would have just come out the starting gates like we do in modern horse racing. Second of all, in the film, they seem to depict the circus as being set into a mountain or set into the rock. There's no examples of that in the Roman Empire at all. And also something else is that they seem to have the spectators standing both around the outside and in the centre barrier, or the spina, as the Romans would have called it. And again, there is no example of spectator stands being in the spina in the middle, and I doubt they will ever find an example like that because they haven't found one yet. So there must have been a reason why they didn't do it. So, what's the next clip looking like? Yes, now this is probably the biggest problem with the whole chariot race, and it's the chariots. The chariots they're using would have been like Rolls Royces back in Roman times. The ones they would have used for racing would have been far smaller, simpler, sleeker chariots. Simple wood covered with animal hide. The ones they would have used there on the film, complete figments of their imagination. Second of all, the horses were far too big. Roman horses they used for chariot racing were tiny. The closest I can think of is maybe an Icelandic horse or a Caspian horse, almost a pony they would have used. And finally, the horses are tied up wrong. The outer two horses would not have been attached to the chariot. The outer two horses does not drive the chariot forward. Only the centre two horses drive the chariot forward. The ones on the outside are simply there to create a spectacle and make it more difficult for the charioteer to steer it, because Romans love spectacles and they've got a really perverted view of the world. So if there is a low-life slave charioteer struggling to drive his chariot at 30 miles an hour, probably faster, that's great. And if they're more likely to crash, even better. So, let's look at our next bit, shall we? Yes, what I said there about more likely to crash, that's exactly the sort of thing. There would have been wreckage all over the place. And I like what they've done with the film in that particular example, because it would have been mayhem. People would have been scrambling on to try and take the wreckage off, clear the track. There would have been little doors at the side called the vomitorium, where they would have come in and try to hook people off to try and get them so the horses don't trample over them. Because the charioteers would have been prized possessions by rich Romans, like how racehorses are today, I suppose. But the reason why that Charlton Heston nearly fell off his chariot was because he was standing in the wrong place, which is another historical inaccuracy. He should have been standing where the axle is, he was standing too far forward in his chariot. If he stood further back, where the original charioteers would have stood, not only would that mean that wouldn't have happened, but that's taking weight off the horse's back, you can easier to steer, and your horses are going to go faster. Now, in this clip, there's one thing I really like, and there's one thing I really don't like, and there are no prizes for guessing which is which. First thing I like is the fish. The fish count the laps. They did do that in Roman times. They had the fish, and they would have tilted them up or down to show how many laps has elapsed. They would have always done 7 laps, because that's a lucky number for the Romans. And the thing I didn't like were those spikes on the chariot wheels. That never happened. Who came up with that idea in the first place? There was spikes on chariot wheels. That just never happened. The Victorians came up with that. I know exactly who it was. It's Victorians. How dare you, Victorians? You cannot steer properly if you've got spikes on your wheels. That drastically decreases the performance of the chariot. Yes, it makes it more spectacular. Hey, I bet the Romans would have loved it, actually, because the Romans loved stuff like that. Anyway, so they're probably the main points I'd like to talk about the 1959 film, but many of you are thinking, well, there was 2 other films. There was a 1925 film and there was a 2016 film. So, are they any good? Well, let's have a look at them, shall we? First of all, 1925. So yeah, as you can see, it suffers from the same sort of problem with the overly elaborate chariots, the massive horses, all that sort of thing. So how about the 2016 version? Well, as you may have noticed, that the chariots weren't quite so elaborate in that, but they were more, in that film, they're definitely more elaborate than they would have been. And something I do like about that is that they actually have the starting gates like they would have had originally. But if I was to rank it out of 10, say if I was going to rank the 1959 version out of 10 for historical accuracy, it's a solid 5. I'd say. Solid 5. 1925, solid 5 again. 2016, 5.5. But yes. So, in other words, I have never seen a historically accurate Roman chariot race on a film ever. And if anybody can think of a film with a historically accurate Roman chariot race, I'd love to know about it, so leave it in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to Time Travel TV, and I will see you next time. Cheerio.